Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the SWAN Circulation Advisory Group. It's January 18th, and I am Crystal Vella, and I am the chair, and I'm the UX consultant here at SWAN. My co-chair is...
Having trouble with her microphone. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Sam Deedle. I'm the co-chair of the Circulation Advisory Group and a bibliographic services consultant here at SWAN.
Thanks. Okay, I am going to kind of do the welcomes a little bit different. I'm going to just ask if you are a Circ Advisory representative, if you could go ahead and unmute and say your name and say hello to the group when I call your name. Okay, so Stephanie?
Hi, I'm Stephanie DeYoung. I'm the circ manager at the Batavia Public Library.
Hi, thanks for coming. Peggy?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Peggy Tomzik. I'm the head of library services at Eisenhower Public Library District.
Thank you. Emily?
Hello. I am Emily Foster, and I am the Patron Services Department Head at Itasca.
Welcome, Emily. Parrish?
Hello, good morning. My name is Parrish Turner. I'm the Circulation Services Manager at the Bensenville Community Public Library.
Welcome, Parrish. Thank you. And Pam?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Pam Kamen. I'm the circ manager at Glenside Public Library.
Great, thank you. Just going through to make sure our missing two haven't popped in. Okay, looks like they have not. So today we're missing Latricia and Victoria, and Sandra is out as well, but we knew that beforehand. So I first want to thank everyone for coming today, and I would like to also thank the Circ Advisory representatives for their very thoughtful responses to the first assignment of trying to figure out what does a Circ manager need to know. It was really great that I got a response from everyone, which was wonderful. It was also very apparent to me that this was something you all really reflected on and took the time to thoughtfully craft your responses. So I wanted to note that publicly and thank you all for that. I am going to kind of go through the results, and I do have some questions. We can talk through those, which is why I wanted to make sure all of your mics work, and you can feel free to unmute yourselves and speak about those questions and just in general how your assignment went for you. And then we're going to create some outline. We're going to get into that in a little bit, and then we'll talk about your next assignment. And I'm going to kind of talk you through some ideas that I might have for our next course and just kind of the future of our training guide here. So if we're all ready, let's just dive into it. So I went through all your responses and I went ahead and created a Miro board that should hopefully load here in a second. I like putting the Miro board together. I feel like it's a good visual for everything. Let's see, why isn't this working? Hold on one second, technical difficulties, of course. I'm gonna stop my share for just 1 second. Okay. Sorry, y'all. It was working right before the meeting. I don't know what happened. Give me one moment. Well, how fun. Hold on one second. Okay, here we are. Okay, so I like to use mirror boards, like I was saying, because I think they're just an easy visualization of kind of a lot of thoughts. And what I went through and did was pulled out a lot of your specifics and a lot of things that you all had overlapped. So, which was great. That means to me, what that shows me is that we're not completely all like doing very, very, very different things. And there's some common ground of what a circulation manager really needs to know. So that was great. That was telling for sure. And exactly what we needed to know. So I'm going to start here with just kind of getting a lay of the land. So here are some questions that we have. But just based off of what you guys wrote in your documents, I just needed some clarification and follow up just to make sure that what I interpret this as is really what you intended it to be. So then we have this option, this box right here, it's already created, and here are the links within here of where to find that on our website. So that was kind of like a little bit telling me that at least we weren't completely off in terms of what you all think that we need to know. Or what you all need to know, and that we are creating and have created documentation or training that really reflects what you need. So that was good. Also, I created these kind of big buckets when I saw some themes to throw your responses in. So what really stood out to me was we needed to look at some ILS configuration, and then we needed to look at some things like our meetings, how to find them, how to open a ticket, things like that. We did have some questions about holds, kind of basically how are they filled? So that kind of like really in-depth holds analysis is what I gathered. And then we also have some questions, and rightly so, about patron accounts. And some of this overlaps a little bit with Blue Cloud Analytics and the reports that you receive for things like the monthly patron purge or the NCOA. So that was it kind of, I could theoretically, like kind of put it in here, but I think that there's something to be said about needing to know not only that this type of report is existing and is created, however, but also that you need to know what to do with them, how to process them, and what that whole process looks like in general. So not even so just what's this report mean, but really what does this whole process behind the scenes look like to have a better understanding? And you can all jump in and correct me if I'm wrong in that interpretation, but that is kind of where I thought these two especially might land in both of these places. And then we also have the Blue Cloud Analytics, and then we have item issues. So let me see here. So I would like to kind of get into the questions first, unless you all want to talk about anything else before we dive into those.
I think going with the questions first is fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we did have some questions about, let's see. Can you all see this? Is this way too small? I'm having trouble just getting to the part of the screen I want to get to. Okay, here we go. Okay, can you all see the questions? Is that pretty clear?
Much better.
Okay, thanks. It's like it's so tiny on my screen. I'm sure it's really hard to read. Okay, so we did have some somebody wanting more information about bankruptcy, but that's all they wrote. So I'm not sure if, and I believe that I don't know if that person's here today. I don't believe they are. So I would like to just see what the group thinks about that and what exactly about bankruptcy are you looking for guidance? Does anyone have any thoughts?
I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know how that would go.
Okay, so does anyone have any thoughts on like, is there confusion, do you feel in general about bankruptcies and how to handle them within, like you get the notice back, maybe that's what, is there any confusion? Like you get the notice at your library, somebody's filed for bankruptcy and what your next steps are? Do you think a new manager needs to know that? I think that's more of like an in-house thing that I don't know if SWAN is the person to give guidance on this. Or is there really no confusion on that? Or
I mean, the way I view it, if a situation like that arises, I think it's nice to have some type of like how to handle that. But
okay.
I don't know if like necessarily, I mean, do libraries get notices like that? I'm just I'm just not really familiar.
Yeah, I was gonna say this has never come up for me. So I mean, I feel like if somebody is filed for bankruptcy, I don't know. I've never gotten a notice or anything. So this is quite curious.
Well, I believe I mean, legally, you can't pursue that person any longer, correct?
Correct.
So, I think what I'm hearing is, and it happens so far and few between, that
Right.
I think some information at least would be helpful for CERC managers, addressing this issue, even if it's, just some basic information, letting people know what a bankruptcy is and what the implications are. And then, who you most likely have to talk to within your organization. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because my understanding is once somebody is filed for bankruptcy, you can no longer pursue that debt, correct?
Yes. And I think maybe too, what's adding is the fact that, we don't credit report these things anymore, that maybe this has died down more.
Well, right.
But
And then the other thing that's always kind of hard too is like, see, and then I think like the other thing that, I don't want to say it's hard, but the other thing that might be important to like encourage is to make sure that like no one like puts a note, you don't want to like put a note in the patron's account, this person is filed for bank, you know what I mean? Like to always like encourage that level of discretion too.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there has to be that level, that's something I'm always very watchful of, with patron records is, you have to be so discreet about things. So I think it's worth addressing with CERC managers, just because, there's some things we do a million times a day and there's some things we may encounter once every couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the things we encounter once every so often that are more important perhaps to have information about, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And this what I'm hearing from the group is this is something that perhaps we need, because even I would have to like start going like, okay, bankruptcy, what do I need to remember to do about this? Do you know, I hope this is making sense.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've come across this maybe twice at Batavia, and it's both times it was kind of like, how do I handle this? And how does this tie in with unique? And what are all the things I need to do?
Okay.
So
Oh.
do libraries have like a policy when this happens? Like should the circuit manager kind of just go align with their library's policy?
You should definitely have a procedure.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay.
If I put my library hat on for just a second, even though it's been off for quite a while, when I used to work in circulation, we would get bankruptcy every so often, and we did have a procedure in-house that we had consulted with our lawyers on. And and so I wonder what part of this is library specific and what part is SWAN directive. And I'm wondering if maybe best practices is a better idea if we were to develop something, just some general guidance, because I don't know that we need a strict SWAN policy on how to handle bankruptcy, but certainly unique, since these are processes that SWAN is involved in. That makes sense to me. Just throwing my 2 cents in.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I see that. I do remember getting bankruptcy notices when I worked in Circ. However, it was very, kind of removed. So in terms of SWAN's involvement, so what I see is I'm not looking at all of these as necessarily we need to build out a training on bankruptcy or we need anything like that. This might be something as simple as a scenario in a training, or something in our documentation that just has a bullet point of, you know, this is not, you can no longer pursue a debt and you need to follow your local practices. So, because for that, that's going to be a little bit different for everyone in terms of who they have to notify. If they, like, I had to notify our business office. I didn't know, maybe that's not the same at every library. So it really depends. But we can definitely get that kind of information from people who have that policy in-house already, just to kind of give some guidance. But Tara, was that you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Martin had a good comment in the chat here that on a related
Oh,
note,
okay.
process for handling things like house fires, which sort of makes me think maybe there's just a broader category
Yeah.
of kind of like weird exceptions. There's got to be a better way to put it, but maybe situations where you would not pursue like bankruptcy or a fire or other scenarios where you just wouldn't pursue collecting fines or collecting materials.
Okay, let me add this here. I know it kind of goes, well, maybe I'll add this as another tag here.
I totally agree with Martin because I actually this fall I've had two situations where patrons have lost materials in fires. One was a car fire and one was a house fire. So I think Martin's right on point. And to kind of follow up on a previous comment, I think even though something might not be, bankruptcy or the procedure to, about what you're going to do in-house when a house fire occurs may not be precisely a SWAN matter. When I'm confronted with a unique situation, sometimes my first course of action is to search the SWAN website for information. And I think I'm not unique in that. So sometimes even having a little bit of a clue about what my next steps should be from the SWAN website helps me decide what I should be doing next in handling a situation at my circulation desk. And it's because SWAN is such a wealth of information for us as circulation managers. So I think it's good to like have something, some sort of guidance,
Okay.
even if it's not strictly a SWAN matter. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because there's been the word policy thrown around here and there, and I want to make sure that we know that that is not a SWAN policy, like that's not going to happen there.
Right.
We can create, I do think a lot of people do go to the SWAN website and just search for things. I do think that, you're not
Right.
alone in that, Peggy. So, adding a bullet point here or there, I mean, not necessarily its own dedicated page, but even adding it to something that we already have
Mhm.
existing could be beneficial. So
Well,
that's good. Thank you all, especially I think I like this, this instances in which you would not pursue payment, and we can add some of these examples in there and kind of build off that. So I think I have enough for this to kind of go, unless anyone has some other thoughts they would like to share. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. Okay, we had this who's who at SWAN. I need a little bit more information. What does that mean? Like, you want to know our names and titles, or are you looking for who to contact kind of thing?
Mm.
Anyone?
I mean, viewing the question, it could be like, who to contact and who handles what. I know like with the few times I had to submit a ticket, the main person who I kind of communicate with is Vicky,
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So I wonder if the question's referring to like a little deeper clarification on like who handles like what. Um, but I think it's somewhat in SWAN when you look for things. And whatnot too. I know like with the fireside chats, you guys do a good job, saying your title and introducing yourselves and whatnot. But I wonder if it's just that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too, Parrish. For the most part, we try to advise everyone to put in a ticket because it's just easier to make sure that it's being accounted for. It's not getting lost in some email that somebody's not on vacation, and so I was just wondering where, and for the questions, this part, I put exactly what was in the documents, just copied, pasted right into this. So this isn't like I was, changing anything. It was like, I don't know exactly what else we need. I know that there's like there's the staff information on the support site. But if people are looking for like key contacts, that is not something we advise, just emailing someone directly. We advise to put in a ticket, especially because we all work so much with each other that, support services, IT support services, they, will route those as necessary. And we're all in the ticketing system a lot. So if we see something that really pertains like to, something they're working on, like I know Sam with like acquisitions rollovers, she'll just pop in and grab those. And, everyone's kind of like on a rotation of tickets. So it's that's kind of like the best way, like sending an email to one person. It's, kind of hit or miss.
This was not my question, but
Mhm.
I think maybe some of the confusion is that even within like libraries, we have various titles that kind of mean the same thing, but they're just phrased differently. So like I'm patron services, but at another library, that's just circulation.
Mhm.
So it could be that maybe just kind of some helpful something, I'm not quite sure, of like, okay, so what exactly is under the umbrella of like bibliographic services, or you know, how some of the titles maybe make sense to SWAN and make sense to other libraries with similar titles, but it's a bit confusing to libraries where they don't have that kind of title, or it's called something different.
Okay.
That's kind of a good point.
Yeah, so maybe I'm hearing just maybe there's like a little blurb on our support site that kind of more clearly outlines the departments.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Okay, great. Okay, there was a conflict resolution request, and I was kind of wondering regarding what. I know circulation can deal with a lot of conflict, so was this regarding billing a patron or like kind of that? I will let you speak. That is my question. Regarding what exactly? Which conflict?
Mm,
I got a question for y'all. I think I've seen libraries have like kind of general like conflict resolution trainings or like change management classes or something kind of similar. Have any of y'all done something like that or had any that were good that we might be able to connect folks with?
We watched a training with, I think it was Ryan Dowd, about kind of like de-escalation, specifically like having to maybe kick people out. But it didn't necessarily have to be up to that dramatic, just kind of like how to foster good relationships and to, you know, uh, I don't know, be kinder in how you speak to everybody.
that's great.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a really good question, Tara. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm hearing is with conflict resolution that perhaps we could find some maybe other tools, some other good webinars, you know, that we could recommend. Okay, so put that there. Let's see. Does anyone have anything else to add about that topic real quick before I move on? Okay. Changing font and workflows. This was very specific. To workflows, it was like a very specific topic. And I was just wondering if we maybe could like beef that up a little bit. Or if there's any other like thoughts on that, or I mean, because like some of this stuff, I'm like, oh, maybe I can, when I do our review of our trainings, I could add some of this stuff within existing trainings and things like that. So I mean, maybe that's something that could live in Circ Basics. Maybe that's something we can put on the support site. Very, simply, but I'm not sure if there was anything else that's, really within the mechanics of workflows that you wanted to dive into. And it was the only one person said this. So I wanted to give everybody the opportunity to either speak on this or to make suggestions or anything like that. So. No, is it simple as that? Okay.
Crystal, I just did a quick search of the support site and I didn't see anything on like basic workflows config, like, and I could have easily missed it, but on anything under that desktop setup under preferences where you can change your font, you can do tabbed windows, things like that. I don't know if that's something, but I would think if we want to beef it up, it would be that whole sort of umbrella in my mind. Just my 2 cents. I know I'm not in Circ Advisory, but.
Okay, so this was mine, and I know how to do this, but it was one of those things where one of my newer staff members, excuse me, has, like, I can tell she's having problems reading the screen and such. And so like trying to, like, I was like, okay, she's not asking for, for help, but I see her struggling. So I've like changed the workflow font to make it large, just trying to make it more accessible.
Okay.
So I think that was kind of it, of like ways to sort of think about making sure that workflows is more accessible for maybe people who are sort of, blind as a bat like myself. That kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Something else that might be useful is to point out how you can change the properties under like some of the common tasks, like paying bills. You can change the properties so your default payment type is different. Rather than cash, it can be, your credit card payment, or, I had to change mine from cash to credit card payment because people were accidentally hitting enter and it was appearing as a cash payment went through when no cash was collected. So I had to change it to the credit card payment type so that at least if they accidentally hit enter, it wouldn't automatically pay it. It would prompt for the swipe.
Okay.
That is excellent. And I'm going to do that today. Thank you.
Yay. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, and let's see. Same things, different ways. So I just put kind of a thought here. That is not, to me, one piece of documentation. That is not one training. That is kind of like a lifestyle, right? It's a living organism in the sense that those internal procedures can change based off of leadership or layout or staffing. So I think with that, what I was going to broach with you all is this kind of teaming up with new Circ managers. So and I can talk a little bit more in detail about what's kind of buzzing around in my mind here, but I think that happens through meetings and like Circ users, as well as having conversations with others in your same field. So I was going to toss this idea and back at you all. And since we're talking about it now, I'll just hear me out. So my thought was, you all are in this group. You are creating this kind of an idea that you know, this is the things that you need to know, and you all are experts in your field in that sense. So I would like to kind of build off of this, not only this training guide and sort of this curriculum building and all of these things, but this idea that when we, a lot of the time, not all of the time, sometimes we have to find this information through the grapevine, but some of the time we are able to, we get tickets and we will see who a new circ manager is. And we have our own like onboarding process here in terms of like getting them signed up for a newsletter and getting them signed up for, you know, the SWAN comms and things like that. Okay, so very SWAN specific. However, I was thinking, what if we took this a step further and they had a contact within Circ Advisory? So it wouldn't burden just one person, it would be spread out evenly. You know, we'd see who, I don't know how that internally works with SWAN, but that's something for, you know, me to figure out with system support. And we can look at those tickets and kind of give this new person who is probably very overwhelmed and give them kind of a teammate, right? A partner, somebody they can call on, you know, somebody you can reach out to as well and welcome them and, you know, give them this sense of community that they might be looking for. Because, you know, we're not necessarily privy to all the background. Maybe they're a seasoned circ manager from a different library. Maybe they're not, I don't know. Maybe they're promoted from within, so they have a lot of circulation background as well. But some of them, but a circ manager position is a totally different beast. So, you know, it's very hard to like kind of customize that unless you know, get to know the person on an individual basis. I see I love this idea from the chat. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out. I'm glad I'm getting some positive feedback. Yes, Peggy is a good mentor. Thank you. Oh, good, Pam, great. Okay, so feel free to unmute yourselves and just talk about this a little bit. You know, I don't know if I feel like I'm getting positive feedback, but I really do want to hear from everybody in the group. What say you, Peggy?
So I think this is an excellent idea. And you know, I can tell you my personal experience. There was a head of circ at one of the neighboring libraries who used to be like my mentor. And she used to be the person that I would call when I had a question. And I was kind of like embarrassed to ask anybody else because I didn't, you know, I knew I could trust her. You know, I could ask that question that, you know, felt like, you know, I felt like I should know the answer, but I didn't. And I knew I could ask her and she wasn't going to judge me.
Right.
You know what I mean? She was going to help me work it out. And it turned into just such a wonderful relationship. And everybody needs that. Everybody needs that person that they can just call and say, I don't remember what I'm supposed to do with this, or I'm just having a day that my brain is not working. Can you help me with this? And they know they have that level of trust and comfort that they can talk to this person and they're going to help them. And sometimes you need somebody that you can just kind of commiserate with too, you know?
Yeah.
You know, my items aren't getting checked in correctly and it's driving me crazy. What strategies do you use in your library when you're in this situation? And I think it's wonderful if we can just always pair people up with somebody that they can talk to or a group of people that they can, you know, email back and forth with. And you know, I've done that where I've had like my little circle of people that, you know, hey, you know, especially during COVID, you know, what are you guys doing about this? Or what are you doing about that? And it's the best part of being a CERC manager, to have those people you can turn to, because you can't always turn to, being a CERC manager at times is a very lonely job.
Yeah.
And you need that person you can talk to. So I think this is a wonderful idea.
Yay. Thank you.
I agree. I mean, in the comments, we all, somebody mentioned, and I agree too, that Peggy's a really good resource when it comes to, asking the question. I haven't done it recently, but there's some nice CERC managers in SWAN too. I know Cheryl, I can't remember her library. I had a question about, I called her with an issue and she was very kind and she gave me her information if I had any more questions. So I think it's a really good idea. I wonder if that is linking to the other question we was discussing, the who is and what they do at SWAN.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was like a bridge to kind of,
That gap, like find
yeah.
that. Yeah. I think that is probably what was happening there. Thank you all. I'm so, I have such a light heart knowing that this program, we can start working out the details, and that you're all on board and think it's something that you're all ready for and can do. And we can definitely work on anything that you all come up with or that we can think of together to kind of make sure that we have information out there and readily available for you all, so that you feel supported as well, being mentors, because that's very important.
This is
Um,
a little bit random, but
Yeah.
I don't know if, there would be a sense of like pairing people up or anything like that. But something to sort of take into consideration
Uh-huh.
is size of library and community of a library, because some of the other CERC managers I've talked to, I mean, everybody's been great, but we just have such different issues because we are in such different communities, or like I'm in a very small library and they're in a much bigger library. So it's a lot of different, we can't relate in some ways. So kind of putting that into consideration as well.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. I do have this last question here about best practices. In regards to damaged items, we do have documentation out there. Were you just saying that we need to let managers know about this, or that we need some documentation gap that you saw?
I wonder if it's like a best practice, like documentation to how to handle it, because I'm guessing they're referring to like the interlibrary loan request that's outside the system, so like the OCLCs and WorldCat.
Okay. Okay.
But
That
then like
helps.
that's what, when I see IO, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the person who had that question probably wrote like, I just discovered. So let's say if it's long overdue, so I think that's the 42 days. I can't remember when it charges. I know ours charges like 150, and then I use it as a scare tactic, but whatever they bill us for, I just adjust it so it's not the 150. But I wonder if like, I don't know if it's set like that for everyone. So I wonder if it's like practice on that, or maybe just a little blurb like, hey, this is this, or
Okay.
Right.
Let me see. Okay. I'm gonna move this then. I'm pretty sure we have documentation and stuff, but I'm still gonna move this over here, and with this idea that items and issues. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through really quickly. This is stuff we definitely for sure already have created, like that should not say statutes, but status. Well, maybe that is right. Okay, statuses, lost cards, days closed, navigating Blue Cloud Analytics, like logging in, filtering, things like that. We have a lot of this stuff already. IPLA reports, quarterly billing, scheduling reports and Blue Cloud Analytics, patron notices, patron notes. That's in one of the trainings for circulation on the online learning platform. And offline circulation, we have a webinar recorded as well as documentation on that as well. So all of that, while it's already created, will go into one of these buckets. What was really surprising to me that I didn't realize, but I think was a really great idea, is this ILS configuration. In terms of, we do these sort of one-on-ones and talk to libraries about their circ and hold maps, especially when they're going fine free. However, there's no class or there's no anything to, the first time you might hear of an item type or a circ map or a hold map and how that relates to what you do in your library. There's no initial, there's nothing there. So I did see that, like, yeah, that is true. Like that might be the very first time you're ever hearing any of this stuff when you're a new circ manager, and that can be because they're so intertwined, it could be very difficult to learn, especially when you're attending meetings and you're hearing all these words thrown around and you might be intimidated and don't want to ask. So I saw that and I was like, that's really good. Let's definitely build something along those lines. And we have some of SWAN related things like how to create a ticket, what's unique management, and what do they do within SWAN. Kind of notices, I gathered quite a few things in here, kind of like the timeline. What do you do with undelivered notices? How does preference play into it? So the preference within a patron record, if your library is closing, what do you do? And where to find meetings to attend, and information about meetings. Holds, we talked a little bit about, how they're filled and kind of that the workings behind how holds are filled, and then how to just place, remove, edit, suspend, kind of that general thing for people to know. We did have quite a bit in patron accounts. And again, I talked a little bit about the purge and NCOA and how those kind of live in two worlds. And then we had something about re-registering SWAN patrons that have moved, blocking and unblocking and barring a patron. So I think that kind of tied back into the statuses. And creating and paying a bill, which, to just let you all know, that is my next course that I'm working with Helen on in the online learning, for the online learning platform. Special cards, so your teacher cards, your things like that, is what I believed that to be. Your business cards, things like that. You found a duplicate record, now what? Maybe that's after the fact. Probably both instances would be good to touch on, whether that's, I found a new record and now they're my patron, now I have to re-register them, or I found a new record and I already created my record. So what do I do? And let's see, generic users and when to use them. I could see that being very informative, and sending an SMS message and workflows. I didn't know that was still kind of like something people use. So that was interesting to find out and see that, we could definitely create something there. And then we got some requests on Blue Cloud Analytics. What do I do with all these delivered reports? What do I do with these kind of relating to patron notices, but what do I do with the errors that I'm getting, the bounces? How do I submit a request for something that's tailored to me or my library, and how to drill down to a barcode within a report. So, and then we had some requests for do's and don'ts of lost items, lost ILLs, these auto renewals and incomplete returns, what to use with unusable and lost, and adjusting the price, stuff like that. So on damaged items, when it's your patron, your item, and when it's your patron and another library within SWAN's item. So all great things that I think a manager should know. A lot of this stuff, which pleases me, is created between documentation, webinars, and online trainings, which is great, which shows me that we aren't very far from, the expectations here. We're creating things that you all actually need, which is great to know. But we can definitely always improve and build on that, which is kind of the point here. So what I think, what I was interpreting this as is like, while a lot of these exist, what really doesn't exist, and what I'm seeing this kind of turned into, was more of a new manager's checklist. So I started to build this out, and I think I already put this in SharePoint. So if you've been into SharePoint in the last couple of days, you kind of saw this evolve a little bit. So what I did with this is I took a lot of things from the Miro board, and I would just want to give a big, like I said, all of you did so excellent with giving me your feedback and your homework, really taking it seriously. I'm going to give a shout out to Stephanie. I have to say the organization on yours was exactly how I think. So it really did help, as and I was kind of blown away by how in depth it was. And so I would, if you all could, just take a look at that real quick. If you're in SharePoint, I would kind of like to get your thoughts and try to start building out a lot of this checklist for new managers. So here's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah, Stephanie, no, really, it was great. Thank you. So onboarding, right? So SWAN in general, we have an internal process of kind of things that we make sure that we're doing to get a new manager or a new library staff member up and running. It's not CERC manager specific, but their L2 count should be created. We tell them to work with their library to get that up and running. How to log in as a support site. That's what I was thinking they should do next. Making sure once they're in the support site, they sign up for SwanCom, they sign up for our newsletter, they go ahead and create a SWAN online learning account. And then they can request a login for the SWAN community forums so that they're involved in that. And then they can create a mentor, a Cersei Dynex mentor login, because they might need that. And then we can kind of dive into some of these. To me, these are the headings, and then we can kind of build out from that, what can fit in there. So I'd like to, I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but I'd like to spend the remainder of what we have building this out if you'd all be so kind to assist with. So do you guys want to add anything else here in terms of these like big buckets? We can kind of take a look at this Miro board again. I put a lot of these, I put these in there, and then I grabbed, like I split out like fines and fees management. That was something that was in something I thought could maybe encompass things like linking them to, you know, the paying bills training we create, anything else, you know, we can link them here to your quarterly billing reports, this Blue Cloud Analytics, we can put in there like a bullet point for, you know, how to log in and navigate, you know, our documentation to that, and then kind of what these, you know, what happens with delivered reports that you're getting. So
I think adding like a bullet point to how to log in to Blue Cloud will be beneficial. I know usually when I have to log into Blue Cloud, if it's not bookmarked, because if I'm at a different computer and whatnot, I have to go through your original email with the helpful links.
Okay.
So that would be, and then I took a screenshot of like the micro board. So in patrons and the other accounts with that will be linked to like the NCOA, because like that's something I'm trying to like, I'm learning about now because you guys recently just finished that. I think that's kind of important to know, especially like, you know, if you're a new circuit manager, you got to tell your staff like, there's a note from, you know, the NCOA, like pay attention because the person, I know this just recently happened with my staff. I had to let them know like this person no longer lives in Bensonville, so please don't place them on hold for a hotspot. Let's verify the information first, and whatnot.
Okay, that's great. So on this last bullet point, I put item issues, which is what I named it. Or we could name it how to handle damaged items. Which heading do you like better?
I think item issues is nice, but I like the how to handle damaged items because I think I think that's the main issue.
Yeah.
Is how to mark an item damaged or not, you know, and
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did take that directly from somebody's header who also did kind of like an outline here. I was like, oh, that's good. I should use that in this outline and our outline. So I do like that. And again, so this will be something that we can all create. And if we don't finish it this meeting, we can definitely incorporate it into our homework. But I do think that this, in my mind, this is a checklist that SWAN would use as well as you all would use within your mentoring. So, you know, they'll have everyone will have like the information, and SWAN could, you know, once we coordinate the mentor program and we have everybody, you know, up and running with that, then we can say, okay, you know, this is what you need to do for SWAN. This is what, you know, these are some of the reports you're going to look at. This is some of that, but then you guys kind of have a guiding post too, to like reach out after, I don't know, whatever that determined time we create, maybe it's a month or so, and say, or maybe it's, you know, after their first quarterly billing, and say, okay, you got your quarterly billing, you know where to find the training, and you know who to contact if you need, you know, a walkthrough on it, just kind of, you know, if we have like in-depth questions, we can talk to Helen, that kind of thing, you know, just so that they know that that is kind of a complicated process, but you have your documentation on it. And you just have some sort of tips to kind of a guidepost in general to like say, okay, yeah, you know, this is, yeah, well, yeah, that's about a generic user and this is what they do. And you have, you know, links to documentation or trainings to tell them to get to and look for. In case they, you know, need any further assistance after they deal with us. I feel like sometimes it can just all be very overwhelming, and it's good to kind of have these like periodic check-ins to just, you know, say, oh, hey, you know, have you looked at, you know, Blue Cloud Analytics reports? Do you have any questions on that kind of thing? Because you're not going to tackle all of this while running your department simultaneously, as there's just not enough hours in the day. So, yeah, that was kind of my thought behind this. Okay, let's do holds real quick. What do they need to know? They need to know how holds are filled, right? That's very important. And we're working on a course as well on that.
How to check the expired hold shelf, you know, to return other libraries' items.
Okay, Victoria wrote clean hold shelf. Do you guys call it clean or what is the official name? Sam, do you know what the official name is in workflows?
It's officially the clean holds shelf.
Okay. All right, so let's do that. So we're calling the things what they are. Do they need to know anything about the on-shelf items with holds?
Yes,
I think that's worth covering.
yes.
Okay.
And then Crystal, and then underneath clean hold shelf report, there should be a little subset about what to do when you don't find an item that should be on your clean hold shelf report. So like if it's missing on your hold shelf.
Okay. And probably the same with the on-shelf items with holds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because those are important steps.
Okay, you got. All right, so let's do this. Canceling, modifying. Well, I guess we can do it like this. All right, Stephanie writes suspending, canceling, modifying. Victoria wrote canceling. Okay. And then Copy versus title hold. Let's put this in how holds are filled. Okay. Oh. Okay. Yes to this, yes. I agree. Can be confusing for sure. Okay. Anything else about holds?
Yes.
What's up?
Somewhere, do we have to talk, does it need to be addressed at all? How about special circumstances like book discussion books,
Sure.
and you know how that all is managed in terms of placing holds, and then how long those items should be on your hold shelf, and what you should be doing with those book discussion books so they don't just sit there, and also the rules about not letting items sit longer on your hold shelf, you know, those sorts of things.
I think
You know,
we
because
have a
there
lot
is
of
a
that.
cert, yeah, there is a cert policy, but also, but I, I think people need those reminders.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know too. So, Sam, if you could double check this, I feel like that is in our documentation. If it isn't, I'll make a note and make sure we put that in there. But so like you see how up here in onboarding, we have these linked out. So this would
Mhm.
be linked out to this either
Right.
training or webinars or things like that. So that way, you know, they can pop in there and make sure that they're reading and everything's kind of in one spot for them. And then, you know, if they have questions about that, they can call their mentor up
Mhm.
and discuss those like instances in which they're confused about or need special guidance.
And then do we need any sort of section in holds about like when something goes wrong with a hold? Um, I'm trying to think, because isn't there like sometime every now and then, like, isn't there something that goes wrong? And I, forgive me, I'm trying to think of the circumstance, like when something, like when a patron, isn't there something that, like when a patron tries to suspend a hold that's already on the hold shelf, it can cause some sort of issue.
Oh, is it when like if they suspended it, it goes to the next person, but how is the certain person notified? Is that what
No,
you're?
no, there's some kind of, I've had this happen a couple times where like, and I'm trying to articulate it, and I can't quite describe it correctly. Where like the issue is something to do with like the items already on the hold shelf, but the patron attempts to try to suspend the hold when it's already on the hold shelf, and then that causes a problem.
I don't
And
think,
yes, Pam has it in the hold limbo where you need to check it out to the generic user to get it out of that state.
okay.
You know, and not everybody might remember to know that because it happens so infrequently. Yes, Pam is correct. The hold limbo where you need to check it out to the generic in-house to get it out of limbo.
Okay. I'm
Yes,
gonna
thank you,
put
Pam.
this
You're
in a,
much more articulate this morning than I am. You know, and that's a little trick that somebody might not remember or recognize if they're new.
okay, I'll have to talk to somebody who knows when that happens.
We can talk if you want, Crystal. There
Yeah,
is a known issue on the Strategics website, but yeah, I think that's just been shared with word of mouth. I don't think that's documented by us anymore.
okay. So to me, that seems like a good thing to add to a training, and maybe even documentation. So I'm going to put that in the mural board, as opposed to the checklist right now.
Crystal, I have a similar one.
Yeah.
So what happened or how to handle it when hold expires, not expires like it's been on the shelf for 7 days, but expires like it was placed on hold a year ago. And it's an available hold and the expiration date happens before the pickup by date.
Ew. Okay. So
It
does that,
happened.
what does happen? Is that an instance in which you'd need to check it out to a generic user, or?
What I do in that situation is I adjust the expiration date to match what the pickup by date should be. And then
Okay.
I discharge it again to regenerate the hold slip.
Okay. That's so interesting.
I think it happens when patrons suspend their holds long enough and they realize it's expiring soon and unsuspend it.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. That's cool. Okay, I'm gonna also put that in the mirror board. And then we can figure out what to do with these very specific instances. Okay. Because that's really cool to know. See the things I would not have thought about. Okay, let's see. Where do we want to go into next? Want to do a little bit more of blue cloud. I'm gonna give us about like 8 minutes here to kind of fill this out a little bit more, because I want to go over really quickly this scenario, the next assignment.
What about fines and fee management? I think, something I try to master, or I think help me, is understanding the timeline of when, an item is lost, and then when it will fully like get lost or build out. So I think understanding that is beneficial. Long overdue and then lost.
Okay. Let's pop back to our mirror board. We had some. Let me see. Creating and paying bills was something. Okay, let's. Okay. Do you need to adjust a bill, maybe?
Oh yeah, how to like adjust or waive, or the difference between loss and loss X. How to bill a user.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is this where we should put fine free? Information. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, do you want to mention what void is? You know how you can use the function void for a transaction?
Okay.
So I don't know that people always think about that.
Okay.
I don't know if this is beneficial, but like a link that shows all the SWAN delivery codes. I know sometimes like if I have to investigate or try to figure out whose item it is, I know a few codes, but there's like tons of SWAN libraries. So I don't have to like constantly go to the website that has all the delivery codes. So I think it's SWAN and Rails both has it.
Okay. I'm going to put that in onboarding. That might just be, I might move it down, but
Oh yeah,
I
I was
feel like that's just in general, like
no,
info.
yeah, onboarding is fine. My mind just was like, oh bam,
Yeah,
delivery
for
code.
sure. Okay.
Um, for notices,
mhm.
probably like an understanding of like when notices are delivered and what the notices say.
So notice timeline. Okay.
If we're continuing with notices, I think a good one is if a patron reports that they're not receiving them, how you can troubleshoot that.
Oh, that's a good one.
Trying to find a way to word that. I'm going to leave it as troubleshooting right now. I'll finesse it later.
How to handle damaged items. I can't remember, but I recall seeing that there's a little table of like what is considered damage,
Mm-hmm.
as and whatnot. Maybe a link to that as well
Okay.
as like what user to check it out to. Yeah,
Yes.
it's for
What is it?
Unusable.
Unusable, right? Like, what is the name? Okay.
Crystal, circling back to notices.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk at all about like the daily SMS report and the message B report and like what the best practices would be when you receive that report?
Okay.
Once you get the report, what should you do with it next?
Okay. Alrighty. Let's see. I think I can just pull straight from ILS config. From our Miro board. Quarterly billing. I just feel like that's, do you want anything specifically laid out? I think we have like a whole packet we can just add in there. Okay. Again, this is in our shared folder, so feel free to take a look at it. If you have any other ideas, feel free to let me know. And right now, I think we need to move on to the next assignment. So let's get to it. Okay, so a while back, I made this sort of template, if you will, of how to create a scenario. And what a scenario is if you haven't taken on any of the online training courses yet, I highly advise you to do that. A scenario is built within those courses, and not in every course, but we try to incorporate these kind of like real life things that your staff or you might come across, and that you'll have to make those kind of decisions. A lot of them are judgment calls. Some of them are things that happen within your library that you'll need to follow your local library procedure. And some of them are, we kind of lay out some best practices within them. So this is an example within one of the courses that exists. So kind of lays out what the issue is. And then this is very specific and what, like the character expression, I'd pick a person and kind of pick what they're doing. Are they talking? Are they upset or something like that? So this is what it all looks like. And you can kind of see, this is the opening scenario. This is the character's expression. And you can go ahead and kind of pick the dialogue. So for here, this is the first scene. This person's asking a questions. Can you forgive? Can the library forgive this fine in this instance? And here are the responses. So based off of, once they press continue, based off of that, they'll get an option of 3 responses or 2 responses, however. And what would happen if they picked that? You'd go on to a different scenario. So this is in creating the patron accounts. So if you haven't taken that course, feel free to go and look at that and look at the scene, the scenario in there, and just try to just so that you can kind of see how it goes based on what you pick. And I would also like you to, I think you all have such great knowledge. And even with just talking things out, like this weird hold thing happened. And I had to check it out to a generic user. That's a great scenario. If you could, within here, this training brainstorming, what we were looking at was the sample scenario, an example. This is the scenario form. So if you could save this locally, and then I would like to, I'm working on bills right now. If you can give me a scenario that you have come across at your desk that you believe would be really helpful for other libraries to figure out or might need help figuring out. If you could do one for bills and one for holds. That would be great. I'm going to follow up after this meeting because we are ending in 2 very short minutes with an email kind of explaining this out a little bit more, but I did want to touch on it right now so you know where to find things and where to put them. So I'm going to create a folder right now and I'm going to put in scenarios, and that is where you can add your scenarios back in. So here is the checklist. If you guys have any wonderful ideas and you want to look to make sure we haven't covered it or you want it covered in there, just shoot me an email. If you have remember to, just look at this example and then download this locally so you're not overwriting the scenario form. Since this is a live environment, that's very plausible. And then once you've created your scenarios, you can go ahead and put it within this folder. If you can just name it, whether it's holds or whether it's going to be fines and fees. So are there any questions so far? Okay, I will follow up with an email if you have any questions after you receive the email. Do not hesitate to reach out. I will answer them. Okay. I am going to stop sharing right now. And I am going to stop the recording.